Hey, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to all my cloud scholars out there. My name is Kieran Tross, and in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the top conditional access policies that I think every Azure administrator should be using within their environment. So in today's topic, we're going to be using conditional access policies, but we're going to use conditional access policies within Microsoft Entra because, hey, that's exactly where we're going to be living for the next couple of years. And it's a new release, and I don't have any videos showing any how to do conditional access policies within Microsoft Entra. So I'm excited to be showing you this video today. So let's first start off with talk about what is a conditional access policy. A conditional access policy, to sum it up, is really about a set of if-then statements. So if you're logging in from this machine, then you won't be able to get access. If you're logging in from this location, then we won't give you access, we'll block access. If you sign in from an IP address that may seem a little bit shady, what we're going to do is we're going to require you to change your password or some type of enrollment of multi-factor authentication. It really depends on how your environment is set up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out each conditional access policy in this video, and then once I start talking about the conditional access policy, I'll explain it, and then I'll get in front of the laptop, and then what we'll do is start going through how to configure that conditional access policy. So that's pretty much how this video is going to play out. All right, so the first policy we're going to talk about is a user risk policy. And what this does is it analyzes the IP address, the device state, and any other suspicious activity that may be happening with the user's account. And if it does see that it reaches a medium or high level, depending how you set up in your environment, what you can do is require that person to change their password. So let's go ahead and let me show you exactly how you get that done. All right, Cloud Scholar. So we are here at the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. So what I wanted you to do is you're going to come on this side, you're going to click on protection, and in protection, we're going to go to conditional access. And over here, we're going to do is create new policy. So if you see any of my other videos when we did the conditional access policies within Azure, I like to do a numbering system. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So the first one we need to do is our user risk policy. I'm just going to call it 5 I'll call it high user risk policy. And for users, I'm just going to click on all users, target resources. I'm going to click all cloud apps. And then when you go to conditions, this is what we're looking at, our user risk policy. So what we can do is we can set the policy. So I called it high risk user. So what I'll do is I'll just click on the high, right? Option, you can go medium if you want to, but it kind of defeats the purpose. We called it high. So I'll just say high. Configure user risk needed for policy to be enforced. If a user risk is high, then what are we going to do next? We're going to change some type of access control. So over here where it says grant access, what we can do is we can block access if the risk is high. So we can say, okay, we're going to block everybody's access when the user risk gets to a high level. Or we can grant access and we can require some type of multi-factor authentication, require password change, etc. There's different options here. But for us, we're saying, okay, you're high, we're blocking it. And then we just click select. Now, I said to you before, this is one of the policies that I think every Azure admin should have. Now, how you set it up is totally different, but you should definitely have a user risk policy depicting if it's high, medium, low, etc. But you don't have to put it as high. And I don't know if I would necessarily go in as far as saying, hey, block access on mine. If it was my environment, I'd probably do it a little bit different. But I'd probably go with grant access and do something a little bit more lenient. But you can wait for this. We're gonna do block access. So when it comes to session, we're not gonna do anything here within session. We're perfectly fine with that. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on report only because I applied it to everyone, and this is only for demonstration purposes. So here we have it now. So if I go to policies, I can see my new policy 5 high user risk policy. But I also have a user risk policy up here from when I set it up in the Azure portal, which was a policy for the contractors. So one thing that I like to do is have policies and have a policy specific to one specific scenario. So I wouldn't have a policy that's covering 3 different areas within my environment, because if that gets messed up, you have to remove that policy and you have more changes to modify. So policies should be very specific when you're creating your policies. And what I like to do is have a policy for contractors and then have a policy for the internal staff.
contractors, you probably will want to have a policy for the contractors that is a bit more restrictive. What I've seen in a lot of environments is the communication between contractors and HR, or third party individuals that are coming into your environment. You know, the HR on their side may not do too well with letting you know that, hey, somebody left the organization. So for reasons like that, I like to get more restrictive with the policies and how you allow people to access your environment. So that is user risk policies that we have set up. That's one of the first policies that we're going to set up within for this video.
The next policy that we're going to implement is sign-in risk policy. And what this does is if you sign in and it says, hey, something seems a little bit off, you can require that the user change their password. And with sign-in risk policies, there's a low, medium, and high level as well, similar to user risk policy. But sign-in risk policy, you can make some modifications to how you want the person to log in, or even require multi-factor authentication. So I'm going to show you how to do that one as well.
All right, Cloud Scholars, so we are back at the Microsoft Entra page, and the next one we're going to do is sign-in risk policy. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click number 6, and I'm going to say sign-in risk policy. And when it comes to users, I'm going to click all users, target resources, all cloud apps. Conditions, I'm going to go to sign-in risk. I'll say yes to configure, medium. You go to done right here. And then where it comes to grant, what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to grant access, but we're going to require authentication strength. And we have different authentication strengths here. And the one I'm going to do is I'm saying, hey, you know what? I need you to be signed in with your phishing resistant FIDO key. And I'll click select. And what I'll do is I'll keep this on report only. And that is pretty much it. That's how you set up the sign-in risk policy within Microsoft Entra.
So the next policy that I'm going to show you to implement that's very important is the session control policy. Session control policy allows you to put a time interval of how long somebody can sign into the environment before they have to re-authenticate. What I like to set it to is 8 hours, because you're working for 8 hours, but you can set it to whatever threshold you want to set it to. It's one of the best things that you can do. I don't believe in letting people sign in today and then they're signed in and they don't have to re-authenticate for like the next week, 2 weeks. I just think that it's a bad security gap. It could cause issues, and I always recommend to my clients, listen, implement session control within your environment to make sure you mitigate any kind of risk that may happen. So let's go ahead in front of the laptop and let me show you how to implement session control.
All right, Cloud Scholars, we're back over at the Entra portal, and we're going to continue making movements. I have a session control policy already implemented. I'm just going to show you exactly how we go about doing it within the Microsoft Entra portal. So we are up to number 7 here in our listing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, hit 7, session control policy Entra, because we're doing this within Entra. And then we're going to click on all users. And what we're going to do is target resources, all cloud apps, which is fine. And then conditions. We don't really need to do anything here. Actually, we do, sorry. Device platforms. This is what we need to configure. So we're going to say any device platform where session control is going to affect. So we're going to click done over here. And then grant, we don't really need to worry about the grant. Require multi-factor authentication. Or you can choose one of the other required authentication strengths if you wanted to. So I'll just leave it as require multi-factor authentication. It's giving me a warning, don't lock yourself out. Don't worry, I'm not gonna lock myself out. I say I understand anyway. And then right here is gonna say use app enforce restriction, sign in frequency, all that other good stuff. So I'm gonna say sign in frequency. I'm gonna change that. I can put it to every 4 hours, 8 hours, etc. And then we say hours. And then what we can do is persistent browser. We're going to say never persist. So basically, let's see what this says. A persistent browser session allows a user to remain signed in after closing and reopening the browser window. This setting works correctly when all cloud apps are selected like we did. This does not affect token lifestyle times, or the sign-in frequency. This will override the show option stay signed in policy and company branding, and never persist. So that whole stay signed in, I've seen that where people are just constantly signed in, and the problem with that is if somebody gets their laptop stolen or something like that happens, or they sign into a public machine And I've gone to, public areas, and I've gone on the laptop or or desktop, and then I see the person signed in and their email is still there, and that's a problem. So you have multi-factor authentication, you have other means that you set up your security, but users aren't going to take it as serious because they just work at the company, they don't care, they're getting paid. And then plus we are the IT professionals, so when they do something silly, it gives us a headache. So I'm trying to make sure that you don't have any headaches and you can sleep well at night. One of the worst things will happen is if you go on a vacation and then you hear, hey, we've been compromised, and then you've got to jump on your laptop. So enjoy your PTO. So what we're doing here is we're going to say never persist. So let's just say somebody was a ding dong and they go ahead and they sign into a public machine and they don't sign out. Guess what? It's only going to last for 8 hours and then they're going to get kicked out. So you can get a little more restrictive here if you want to. If you wanted to do a session control for contractors itself and you said, hey, you all have to sign in every 4 hours, you can do that as well. Customize continuous access evaluation. You could do that as well if you wanted to. We don't really need to put that on. This is suffice for what we need. And then once you click OK, and then we just click create. And we create it, and it's in report only mode, so we don't have to worry about anything.